welcome to the show, Gaming with Glacier, Warhammer, Chaosbane. We're back again, yeah, back on that Warhammer wagon, yeah. Shouts out to Games Workshop, Warhammer Fantasy, Warhammer 40k, all the good greatness. I will say, out of all entertainment mediums across the board, the lore that Games Workshop builds up for both Warhammer Fantasy, Warhammer 40k, I think hands down it's easy to say Warhammer has the best lore of any lore in the universe. Yeah. Welcome to the show, Glacier, your host, the most froze, the bad boy of indie comics, CEO of Glacier Mount Comics, the future of indie comics. Yeah. Stay alert. Hang tight. Comic books are on the way. Yeah. Go ahead and follow me at Twitter, on X. My handle is big_speech. And big is all capitalized. Yeah. Let the festivities begin. Yeah. Alright. I'm gonna stay with my Slayer dwarves. What? Okay. What did we do last time? We did the Forges of Nuln last time. Where am I taking my Slayer dwarf now? I think we're gonna go to Magnus' Curse. Why is it doing that though? I thought this was Warhammer Fantasy with Slayer dwarves. Is this Magnus the Red from 40k? Huh. Magnus the Red. Didn't Magnus the Red since Magnus the Red is like a Primarch with like extreme Psyker abilities, I think he has the most Psyker abilities of all the Primarchs. And you know, each of their legions, each of their armies are made from the same DNA sequence as their Primarchs. All 20 Primarchs had their own legions, and their legions were made like clones. Lab-made soldiers were made from the DNA of their Primarchs, so that they worked well with their Primarchs. And so Magnus, being a Psyker, all his legion were like highly susceptible to like Psyker abilities, you know? So they had no control over their powers. They had no idea what they were doing until Magnus, you know, was found like the other Primarchs and became the head of his legion. And then their DNA sequences become stabilized once they're compatible with their Primarch. So like since their Psyker abilities were going unchecked without Magnus as their leader until he was found, they were susceptible with their Psyker abilities to communicate telepathically with like chaos beings and demons in the warp. And so through this, you know, they began having body transformations, becoming more and more demonic than fucking human. And so Magnus, in order to save the lives of his legion and his future legions from being affected by the corruption of chaos and going through these mutations, he strikes a deal with the chaos gods, and he sacrifices one of his eyes, his own eyeball, to end any further demonic mutations of his legion. And this looks like him right here. It even looks like he's missing his eye. So I don't know why we'd be going to Magnus's Curse if that's a 40k Primarch. Unless, of course, there's like a doppelganger that I don't know about type of deal. Or Magnus was already established, but in Warhammer Fantasy before 40k. And maybe he has a similar story as in 40k. He gave up his eye for his soldiers, I don't know. Alright, let's start the show. paypal.me/glacier 8888 paypal.me/glacier 8888. Go ahead and consider leaving a donation if you've been entertained in any way, shape, or form. Go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Let's get this show started. Yeah. Oh no. Is there any way to see what I've watched on Facebook? God.
You looking at God. You know what you know? You looking at God.
There he is. Okay, hang on.
Move and decision you make with your life. They thought that the adversity.
Here we go. Very important message for all of you.
One of the greatest strategies of your enemies is to gossip. Chosen ones. Your enemies are starting to panic. And the reason is this. A lot of high-ranking people are beginning to see that you are not who they say you are. Let's tap in tonight. One of the greatest strategies of your enemies is to gossip, is to slander, is to try to make people see you different than who you are. This is why they don't invite you. This is why they isolate you at work for those work jobs. This is why they try to compete with you. They want to change the perception. As I said before, the problem isn't so much you. The problem is how other people see you. And they hate that people love who they hate. Do you understand? And what's happening now, keyword in this talk is expose. It's becoming clear to people who can promote you, open doors for you, bless you, elevate you, that you are not who they say you are. In other words, they have, let me make it plain this. They're trying to act like you are the phony, and the phony is them, and they're about to see that. Can I say that any clearer than that? They're trying to act like you're phony. They're trying to act like you're not who you say you are. They're lying on you, gossiping. That's what that's all about, trying to blemish your image, right? And the way Annalise said. And now it's clear that they are liars, and you are who you say you are, and you're about to experience breakthroughs. Chosen ones. Chosen ones. Your enemies are starting to panic. And the reason is this. A lot of high-ranking people are beginning to see that you are not who they say you are. Let's tap in tonight. One of the greatest strategies of your enemies is to gossip, is to slander, is to try to make people see you different than who you are. This is why they don't invite you. This is why they isolate you at work for those work jobs. This is why they try to compete with you. They want to change the perception. As I said before, the problem isn't so much you. The problem is how other people see you. And they hate that people love who they hate. Do you understand? And what's happening now, keyword in this talk is expose. It's becoming clear to people who can promote you, open doors for you, bless you, elevate you, that you are not who they say you are. In other words, they have, let me make it plain this. They're trying to act like you are the phony, and the phony is them, and they're about to see that. Can I say that any clearer than that? They're trying to act like you're phony. They're trying to act like you're not who you say you are. They're lying on you, gossiping. That's what that's all about, trying to blemish your image, right? And the way Annalise said. And now it's clear that they are liars, and you are who you say you are, and you're about to experience breakthroughs. Chosen ones.
Wow! Alright, let me just check my audio on the YouTubes. on the tubes of you. Yeah. And then we'll get started right with the show. Just make sure my audio is working. And we'll get started right with the show. Yep, sure there it is. Audio is a go. Who's this? We got IPS Kitty in the house. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna watch. Like I said, Warhammer has the best lore, so we're gonna watch the lore on all 20 of the Primarchs. The TLDR, all Primarchs explained. Back on that Warhammer wagon, yeah. Alright. Let's turn this up.
The blue business cash card with no annual fee. Terms apply.
What up, LPS Kitty? Thank you for stopping by. Yeah.
Helping themselves. I like having no anyone from this legion.
Okay. Restart this. Here we go. Some Warhammer lore for that ass. Yeah.
In a dark and secret laboratory at the end of the Unification Wars, the Emperor perfected his greatest super soldiers using his own DNA and power from the warp itself. Stolen by the gods of chaos and deposited on planets across the galaxy, each boy would grow into a ferocious and powerful warlord. Today we are going to show you the very beginning of these
Collect red orbs to fill your bloodlust gauge. Then unleash it to collect lots of fragments from enemies.
We are going to start with how they were created.
The Primarch Project.
The Emperor looked around at his army of Thunder Warriors and decided it was time to up his game. The Thunder Warriors were genetically enhanced super soldiers. They were batch-made, hyper-aggressive, and prone to going a little insane.
Meet Teclis at the entrance to the cemetery. Okay, let's go meet Teclis.
He needed help to design a better soldier. Enter Amar Astardi. Having grown up on Terra during the Age of Strife, surviving by using her intellect for various warlords, Astardi had already been experimenting with ancient technology.
Where's the cemetery?
Super soldiers, making her exactly
down here?
the type of scientist needed to create the next generation of superhuman crusaders. Astardi and the Emperor built a plan for a group of near-immortal post-human warriors led by 20 supreme generals, beings that would be second in power only to the Emperor himself, and would act not only as an extension of the Emperor, but also the genetic template for a
there he
breed
is.
of soldier, the Space Marines. They named
Teclis.
these generals Primarchs,
My Ninja Teclis. What up?
warriors, and coded the whole endeavor as the
The
Astardi
Ungor required very little
setting up in a secret laboratory under the Himalayan mountain range, which
Uh-oh.
would eventually be built up into the imposing imperial.
schemes and scams going on.
Emperor's biotechnical division got to work, taking genetic material from the Emperor and another perpetual named Urda to begin the
Friedrich.
incubation of 20
Lead
bouncing
us.
baby warlords.
Cult Shrine.
But it was here that everything
And sewers. Oh shit.
mankind was not content
Teclis, why you gotta send me in the shitter again?
Maybe his previous
Damn it.
efforts to have children hadn't worked too well, or maybe he had a new thing he wanted to
Goldman.
try. But the Emperor managed to
Look at Braggy. Look at that mohawk on Brad.
dark gods of chaos
Braggy. With the orange hockey.
Special powers. A deal
That luxurious orange beard on the Slayer dwarf. Yeah.
displeased, and with the use of some time travel shenanigans, they managed to get the Geller field protecting the infants in their pods disabled and scattered the children across the stars.
Supreme.
Jury is still out on whether the Emperor planned this as well.
Betrayal.
His son's very childhood experiences.
Selfish.
Given how much this set him back, it's doubtful. Without the Primarchs, the legions of new Space Marines had
Oh shit.
premature DNA that had
Got
been
him doing the same to me.
where they had been stolen.
Ooh, good question.
Resulted in weaker Marines until each legion was reunited with their Primarch
Oh,
father,
so
and their
told.
genetic code could be stabilized.
Oh, that's the beast man behind me. Look at him.
Starting to despair, believing the
That's the
Primarchs
Ungor.
were doomed. She helped plan the infamous palace coup and used the distraction to destroy
Enter the cemetery.
of the Primarchs to stop the creation of any more before being killed by the Emperor.
Main quest.
And that finally brings us to the beginning of the
Earn valuable rewards
took his new Space
by
Marines
donating the loot to the Collectors Guild.
to find each of the lost Primarchs. Let's begin with the first of them to be found. No, we are not just memeing here, saying the Primarch named Alfarius was the first to be found. It's actually what happened, we think. The problem with the father of the 20th Legion is that there's not much known about him, and what we do know is likely either a lie, a trick, or both. But even though the Imperial histories declared that the first Primarch found was Horus, there is a secret record that states Alfarius was recovered first, his pod landing on Terra itself, and he
following
was
this fucking beast, man.
in order for him and his spies to act
Spawn
as
of chaos.
spies unhindered for the
What's all
entirety
this?
of the crusade. Assuming this is true, it
Oh,
makes
no.
sense. Alfarius is the spy. He was pragmatic, thoughtful, independent. He was a very creative thinker.
Oh, they're gonna send all the decays after
Even his
me.
physicality helped him to muddy the waters.
The
as he was one of
Nurgle.
the smallest of the Primarchs, while the Marines
Survive the chaos ambush.
I need to fight.
This allowed Alfarius to masquerade as just another Alpha Legionnaire.
No,
and
I
vice
need
versa.
more time.
I am Alfarius became a common thing to hear whenever an outsider asked anyone from this legion who they were.
No, I need more
Alfarius died
time.
like it was breathing. What he said in one place was immediately undone by something he said in another, and a big part of that included his name, Alfarius Omegon, which in itself hinted at his greatest secret. Alfarius was not one person, he was two.
Let's give them a little respite.
Making image representation.
Let's give them a little respite. You'll never take me like that. Pick me. Let's give them a little respite.
Your place. Come to your fort, dealer, or
No, I need more time. You'll never take me like that. Pick me. Let's give them a little respite. No, I need more time.
By some quirk of the transportation method from the Emperor's cloning lab, the Primarch that would become Alfarius Omegon was split into two bodies.
Just another
sharing
second,
one soul.
and I'll crush them
In
all.
keeping with the theme of this enigmatic Primarch,
No,
we
I
saved
need
the best
more
of their
time.
story to the very end when official records say they were discovered. The Emperor's
Don't.
teenage son,
I need
George,
more
was
time.
officially the
Just
first to be
strike
found
the
when
fatal
Chaos
blow.
Bane scattered the Primarchs in their
need
pods.
to
One
fight.
carrying the boy who would become Horus Lupercal landed on the world of
Don't
Cathonia.
toy with me. Just strike the fatal blow. No, I need more time.
Hadn't settled since the dawn of humanity's interplanetary expansion.
No, I
So
need
it
more
was
time.
a blasted and ruined place, completely
What
taken
a
over by
sweet
industry
death.
and mined nearly hollow by millennia of resource extraction. The people living there were organized
I need
into
to
gangs,
fight.
with constant warfare over dwindling resources being the norm.
I
As
need
one of
to
these
fight.
gangs that found the infant Horus and took him in, raising him to be audacious, opportunistic, cunning, and
need
above
to
all
fight.
else, hungry for approval. Unlike most of his brothers, Horus did not
Troll
grow into
Slayer
his Primarch
crest.
abilities immediately.
Okay, I survived.
His time on Cathonia
What's the
trying to
next
earn
mission?
His name in the constant skirmishes his gang engaged in. Then, rediscovery. After a brief skirmish
What the
with
hell?
mechanical tech priests, Horus was
Should I
identified as
go
the
this
first
way?
of the lost Primarchs and immediately sent to Terra. And it was here
I've
that Horus
lost
really
the
came into
blood
his own.
rush.
As the
Let's
first
give
of
them
the
a little
Emperor's sons to be
respite.
found, the Master of Mankind spent a lot of time with the young Primarch.
No, I need more
Trained in
time.
the war and given his very own legion of Space Marines to lead.
Just
guess
another
the
second,
ambush
and
isn't
I'll
over, huh?
crush them
This
all.
one was created
I've
using
lost the
genetic
blood
template
rush.
of this specific Primarch, making them uniquely able to
Let's give them a little
abilities
respite.
and quirks. Reunited with his gene sons, Horus rapidly became a fearless general, which was exactly his purpose. Remember, the Primarchs were manufactured beings designed by the Emperor to fit certain niche roles in his grand plan. Each of them was an experiment to create beings that excel at a particular slice of empire building. We don't have a lot of evidence for what the Emperor was planning for most of his sons,
No,
but either
I
through
need
design
more. I must
or
return
training,
to the
Horus
fight.
became the general, a leader who understood every facet
I've
of warfare,
lost the blood
able
rush.
to plan, react, and improvise to any threat, as well as being a fairly strong combatant in his own right. More importantly, he was the perfect right-hand man. And for over 30 years, this singular general trained and
Just
fought by the
another
Emperor's
second,
side,
and I'll
leading
crush
each
them
other
all.
farther than any other Primarch would manage to build.
Yeah.
They would save each other's life on the battlefield.
Let's
more
give
than
them a
once,
little
especially during
respite.
their wars against the massive Orc Empire of Ulanor, where Horus saved the Emperor from a particularly powerful war boss.
I've lost the
So by
blood
the time the
rush.
second Primarch was found on a distant, icy world, Horus was used to being the only son, and his old approval-seeking tendencies from his days as a
I must
desperate
return to
hive-ganger
the fight.
began to show themselves. His pride and superiority complex were sources of friction between
I
Horus
need
and some
to
of his brothers,
fight.
especially after he won the title of War Master at the conclusion of the
I
Northern
need to
Crusade,
fight.
making him the official commander of all Imperial forces, second only to the Emperor himself. But even so, he was still a loyal and good-natured man for the most part. Even his resentment at being
Just
commanded
another
by the
second,
Emperor to finish
and
the
I've
war
lost the
himself
blood
was
rush.
kept in check until plans set in motion by his brother Lorgar began to poison his mind and tempt him on the dark path of chaos. But that's a story for another video, so let's turn back the clock to that second Primarch and a lonely, ice-covered planet. That world was called Fenris, a hostile, frozen world home to a handful of
I
tough
need to
communities
fight.
living similarly to the barbarian tribes of ancient Terra. But the pod carrying our second Primarch did not land close to one of these barbarian villages.
I've lost the
No,
blood
it landed
rush.
deep in the unforgiving tundra, with no one around to take in the crying child that emerged from his pod. Well, no human, anyway. The nameless child was instead taken in by a Fenrisian
lost the blood
and
rush.
raised alongside her other pups. Soon the boy was out hunting.
I've
with
lost the
raging
blood rush.
enemies. Eventually, they caught the attention of a particular.
Let's give him a little rest. The blood rush.
Killed the wolves and took in the boy. The king of
No,
this village
I need
saw
more
it
time.
But something was different about the boy and took him in, naming him Lehman. Lehman
Just
Plus.
another second,
Here, Lehman
and I'll
grew with
crush them
mastering
all.
the language and the art of combat. He learned camaraderie and became quick to laugh and sing, taking joy where he could, and generally being a chaotic mess of a man, socially speaking at least. But in
Just
other
another
areas of his
second,
life, it was
and I'll
more
crush them all.
than human. He was a giant of a man who fought whole armies on his own, ripped massive
No, I need more time.
and was able to wrestle gigantic beasts to the ground.
Ah,
So it
let's
was
give him
no
a little
surprise that
respite.
his adopted father passed away. It was these stories that finally reached the ears of the Emperor as he was commanding his newly formed Great Crusade, and it brought him to the frigid surface of the icy backwater planet in search of what he knew could only be.
No, I need more time.
The Emperor came disguised as he often did in new places, and they refused to
Better
let him
give Nurgle his money back.
eating contest.
He ain't gonna
I
get
need to fight.
Braggy the Slayer Dwarf. Yeah.
The Emperor actually failed first to finally succeeding in beating
Warm up the bus, Nurgle.
was apparently all the
These demons ain't cutting it. Yeah.
right then and there. And it's a good thing too, as Newman was very special even in comparison to his brothers. Remember what we said about every
I
Primarch being
need
a
to
specific
fight.
experiment?
Just another second,
Even
and I'll
more
crush them
specialized
all.
than the others,
I've lost the
and Newman
blood
was
rush.
one of those three. Out of all of his brothers, the Wolf King was the strongest.
I must return to the fight.
Combine firepower, fury, and faith to purge the
Ooh, what'd he drop?
conquer the battlefield.
Oh,
Command the elite.
yeah.
Crush the Seas today. Download Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus now.
I need to fight.
Whoa, it took him out in one hit. That was beautiful. Where do I go now?
Visit CoreTechFloors.com to view hundreds of styles.
And that appears to have been by design. When one is building an army of superhuman soldiers led by demigods, it pays to make sure you have at least one of them who is both loyal to
I
the
need
father
to
and
fight
able
just
to
another
any
second,
of the
and I'll
others.
crush them
As a
all.
fighter, he was vicious, relentless, and
Blood,
No.
the blood
I
god.
need more time.
potentially fatal wounds to win. As a general, he was all of these things on a larger scale. His savagery translated to decisive
No,
decisions.
I need more time. I've
Being
lost
no
the
reservoir
blood
for a
rush.
cunning strategist,
No,
every
I need
engagement
more
he
time.
led ended in a brutal and decisive strike, especially when he was forced to fight.
Just another second,
We're not certain
and I'll
if he was
crush them
specifically
all.
to be the Emperor's executioner, but that is what he became.
No,
Only a
I need
handful
more
of his
time.
brothers would have stood
I've
up to him
lost
in
the
a fair
blood
fight,
rush.
and none of them had his drive. And maybe that's what he was actually made to
Yeah.
be. The one Primarch willing to do whatever it took to get the job done. The Emperor knew his enemies in the war were creatures of pure madness.
I need to fight!
The strong minds of his sons, but not the
Purge, you demons! Heresy, heretics
choice for enforcing.
must be purified.
No! I need more time!
It was not a secret either, a fact that likely led to Lehman being unpopular with
I
most of his
need to
brothers.
fight!
Horus thought he was an unrefined barbarian, while he and Lionel Johnson
I need another second, and I'll crush them all! Let's give them a little respite!
Yeah.
Russ was a Primarch killer and had proved it twice. The truth
Let's
of it
give
is
them a
that
little
Russ
respite.
desperately had
Bloodlust.
the men
Yeah.
at least his brothers. It is just
They're all
too hard
fucking
to form
dead.
strong bonds with people who you might be ordered to.
Bloodlust.
It's
Yeah.
hard to shake that sort of reputation gained from making the list of your
Just
comrades
another
with
second,
loyalty
and I'll crush
to
them all!
The only thing marking the existence of the Primarch of the Second Legion are an empty statue.
Who wants some of
the
it?
sad looks shared between Primarchs.
Who wants some of
whenever he is
Braggy?
mentioned.
No! I need more time!
Records show that the ex-Primarch was Chaosbane.
Hey, little ghouls.
No!
Yeah.
I need more time!
Whose gestation pod landed in the wilderness of a dangerous planet. Medusa is a waste world. Generations of industrial exploitation have made the surface unstable, and millennia of discarded industrial machinery and waste painted the picture of a gloomy and barely habitable planet.
No! I need more time!
Never even mastered agriculture, or in heaven had reached Medusa.
No!
and remnants
I
of
need
the
more
gods
time!
between the old ones and the Necrons lay dormant in the few untouched areas of
No!
the planet.
I need more time!
Pod carrying the child Primarch landed in one of these hidden places.
No! I need
Spent
more
some
time!
growing up alone in the wilderness. Bears were curious and decided to
Just
examine the
another
technology
second,
that
and I'll crush them all!
his pod accidentally freed an
No!
ancient
I need more time!
like monster, which proceeded to leave the cave and
Holy shit.
Let's give them a little respite!
Midas felt incredibly guilty and vowed to take the creature down.
No!
Oath that would
I
keep
need
the
more
creature
time!
complete, finally trapping the monster in a volcano and drowning it in lava.
Just another second, and I'll crush them all!
Giving him his name, Manus.
Let's give them a little
During
respite!
his long hunt, Manus had shunned human contact, and he didn't become
Just
that much
another
more
second,
sociable
and I'll crush them all!
He joined society and began teaching the
No!
nomadic
I need more time!
all about technology. But while he was made ruler, he was
No! I need more
trying
time!
they handle their own conflicts if possible. This is how
Let's give them a little respite!
They're well versed in technology, preferred action to words. Like his brother Lehman Russ, Bears refused.
Just another second, and I'll crush them all!
And so the two fought a cataclysmic duel in the mountains of Medusa until Manus was beaten and agreed to serve them
Yeah.
as mankind.
Kicking all kinds of ass. Yeah.
Manus quickly got to work shaping them into a force of relentless conquest. Renamed the Iron Hands after their
I've
leader,
lost the
Legion
blood
was
rush.
a force known for its armored advances and for showing no mercy
I
to
need
those
to
who proved
fight.
themselves too weak for the Emperor's vision of humanity. Pierce himself proved to be the most stalwart of his brothers, even more so than Roman Thorn. Once Bears had made a decision, there was no turning him from it.
Let's give them a little respite!
Anything else. In battle, he was a sledgehammer, and his
No! I need more time!
was second to none. A truth that he swore to acknowledge later during the heresy, saying that none knew war better than himself.
Just another second, and I'll crush them all! Take me like that! Hit me!
Kill that bloodlust, bitch. Oh, no way.
Planning groups, and didn't form very many relationships at all, much less with his bickering brother Primarchs.
Pay to
with one
revive?
exception. Fulgrim would form an unlikely
Oh, shit.
the two complementing each other well despite their differences. The pair would forge weapons for each other, and their trust went deeper than almost any other pair among the other Primarchs, a fact that would become one of the greatest tragedies of the upcoming era.
No! I need more time!
Discovered was the fictitious Primarch known as
Just another second, and I'll crush them all!
demanded a great appreciation for the
Just
No.
another second, and I'll crush them all! No! I need more time! Let's give them a little respite! Hit me! Let's give him a little
things
respite!
humanity made. And it was the planet he landed on as a child that reinforced those traits, though to be fair,
No! I need more time!
rather than because of them. Deimos was yet another world ravaged by millennia of industrial activity, a trend that should be noticeable by now. Many of the worlds cut off from Terra during
Yeah, did I survive it?
run out of resources and lost knowledge in the intervening time. So when the pod-carrying baby Fulgrim landed in the factory district, his coming was like people living there. By the time he was 15, he had identified a number of places to increase the efficiency of his factory district and was given a seat on the local council. By the time he was 50, he had become the ruler of the whole planet and had sparked a renaissance. Fulgrim was running the
Brad,
planet
you don't
so
play
well
that shit.
Deimos finally had free time, and so he had fostered in them
Return
the
to
love of the arts.
Tethys.
And this is how the Great Crusade found Deimos and Fulgrim. The huge Baroque warships of the Emperor's fleet entered orbit, dropships landed and disgorged hundreds of armored space marines, each wearing a work of art never before seen on Deimos. Fulgrim recognized the beauty of these works and the god who led this alien procession, and knelt immediately. Fulgrim, as it turned out, was the Primarch of the 3rd Legion, an army that had recently suffered a catastrophic accident that lost most of its gene seed, the material that lets a legion replace its losses.
Where's Teclis?
Fulgrim spoke so beautifully to his new sons that the Emperor himself was moved and allowed the legion to be named the Emperor's Children, taking the Imperial Eagle as their symbol, becoming heralds of sorts for the Emperor's forces. Fulgrim, for his part, took this as a great honor, and he pushed his new legion to become the very best that any Astartes had ever been. Perfection was the only goal, nothing less would do, and it was this drive to purge weakness that gained Fulgrim a strong friendship with his brother Chaosbane. Both Primarchs shared the very best of the Emperor's vision for humanity. In combat, Fulgrim led his men with almost insane adherence to the ideals of efficiency and perfection, ensuring that objectives were won
where's
with the
Teclis?
absolute minimal losses possible. For instance, when asked to take the world of Byzas, Fulgrim won the day using
what can I
only
do with
7
all these?
Marines, taking grievous wounds in the process. Unfortunately, the size of Fulgrim's legion would force the Emperor and Horus to hold them back from the biggest, most glorious campaigns, and so Fulgrim grew to be very hungry for approval, while still being so sure that he and his sons were the absolute pinnacles of the legions, a combination that would make him an easy mark for his less loyal brothers later. Continuing the theme of struggling through childhood on a hostile planet, Vulcan was discovered next. Frigid cold, dangerous monsters, and collapsing societies were one thing, but when Vulcan's pod opened to the blazing heat of the volcanic radiation-blasted world of Nocturne, it would be fair to say that he probably had to brave the most hostile conditions to start in. Vulcan was discovered quickly and raised by a local blacksmith. Even on a world like Nocturne, where the crust itself is barely holding together at the best of times, humanity still found a way to survive. That tenacity and the sense of community that supported it was something that young Vulcan took to heart. Within 3 years, the boy had already become a strong giant of a man, capable of great works of art in his adopted father's forge, but he was also a great leader, and in his 4th year, he got a chance to prove it. Being a death world where any life possible is harsh and often miserable, Nocturne was almost the perfect hunting grounds for the Drakari, the Dark Eldar, graceful and cruel alien slavers who delight in misery. Every 4 years, like clockwork, they raided Nocturne tribes, and every 4 years the humans living there would hide and hope not to be found. Until a young Vulcan stood in the center of the village, holding only his 2 blacksmithing hammers, wordlessly inspired his community to stand against the alien raiders, and for the first time in generations, the humans won, beating back the Drakari with a 4-year-old Primarch leading them. Fairly predictably, emissaries from the 7 largest villages on Nocturne had traveled to meet the miraculous child and swore to join him in defense of their world, and it was at the victory celebration that a stranger appeared. He arrived just as a tournament to honor the recent triumph was about to start, and he said he could beat anyone, including young Vulcan. 8 days of back and forth, the stranger and Vulcan each besting the other until the final challenge, a hunt for the largest salamander they could find. It would be more accurate to describe the gigantic lizards that wander Nocturne's lava fields as dragons rather than salamanders, but regardless, the largest kill would win the tournament, and the 2 set out. Vulcan had good luck finding a huge drake and slaying it, but on his journey back, the volcano he was hunting on erupted, hurling him off the edge of a cliff. He held on with one hand for hours, unwilling to drop his prize, but unable to haul both himself and the carcass up. That's when the stranger appeared, with a much bigger kill. Without hesitation, the stranger used his salamander as a bridge to cross the lava and get to Vulcan, hoisting the boy and his salamander up to safety, but sacrificing his own trophy. When the pair returned to the village, Vulcan was declared the winner, but he pledged his services to the stranger anyway, now revealed to be the Emperor, as any person willing to give up glory to save a life was worthy of his service. And just like that, Vulcan was reunited with his father and the 18th Legion, now renamed the Salamanders in honor of the trial that had won the Emperor his son's loyalty. The Salamanders were the second of the Trefoil Legions we mentioned earlier, and while we do know why they were created, this is a story better left for our retelling of the Horus.
Getting the BXD and PXP with the L4 BMG from B-Caps to align with the JPKs from GDC. Dan, thoughts?
I'll lock in the L4 BMG and align it with GDC.
Sounds great.
Mayonnaise.
Heresy. For now, it's enough to know that as a byproduct of their very special makeup, Vulcan and his gene sons were immovable in the defense of others. To be clear, this wasn't the stubbornness of the Iron Hands or Imperial Fists. The warriors of the 18th Legion were practical and not above falling back if the need arose. But if their charge was in danger, if civilians needed support, or if there was ever a need for a shield to hold an enemy in place as long as possible, the Salamanders stood ready. And this was reflected in the demeanor of their Primarch.
Teclis isn't in any of the spots he's usually at. Is he back at the cemetery?
And ruthless against the enemies of humanity. Vulcan spent a few years learning from the Emperor before truly being
Teclis, where the heck are you?
Youngest Primarch thus far to be found, Vulcan was truly a child and required training in the ways of war and statecraft, among other things. But soon his first engagements began. It was, of course, a rescue mission. Vulcan arrived to relieve the surviving members of his legion during a fierce battle at the head of 3,000 new recruits, just in time to win the day, but not in time to save many of his sons that he had never met. High casualties would mark the 18th Legion through the rest of the Great Crusade, with the army being used primarily for desperate holding actions, and generally anywhere that the Imperial leadership needed to hold at all costs. This led to the Salamanders being by far the smallest of the Legion Astartes, so much so that when Rabute Gilliman wrote the new laws that broke up the legions into smaller chapters, the Salamanders were exempt as they were already at chapter strength. Regardless, they and their Primarch were always the first to dive in and the last to leave a hopeless defense. Unlike other Marines, the Salamanders often continued to live in the tribes of their birth with their mortal relatives, which only served to reinforce the bonds they had with unaltered humans. They never lost sight of who they were or what they were truly defending. Officially, the sixth Primarch to be found had all to say about the early life of Rogel Dorn. Either nothing of note happened, or the typically stoic man simply didn't go into much detail when asked. We do know that the pod bearing the Primarch of the 7th Legion landed on the world of Inwit, a planet idly locked to a dying star, causing half the planet to be covered in scorching deserts, and the other half to be covered in thick glaciers. It's beneath these monolithic sheets of ice that people living on Inwit made their homes, in fortresses carved from the ice itself. The child who would become Rogel Dorn was adopted into the House of Dorn, one of the ruling clans of the planet, and just like his brothers, quickly and at a young age, he was already bigger, stronger, and smarter than anyone else. But he was a beautiful grandson to the patriarch of the Dorn clan, a man that I would remember fondly for the rest of his life. That loyalty and lack of ego was Rogel's entire life. He was a man
Whirlwind of Blades.
and talented leader,
New skill.
Never showed a hint of ambition to take power. He was dour, serious, and unsmiling, though to those who knew him well, he apparently had a decent sense of humor. After his grandfather died, it was obvious he would succeed him, and Rogel was crowned the Emperor of the Inwit cluster in very short
How do I get any of this
large
stuff?
part of his success was that Phalanx, an orbiting battle station built in the Dark Age of technology. The phalanx had sat derelict in space for generations before Dorn repaired it, bolstering ancient systems and revealing a talent for building defenses and fortresses. But regardless of Dorn using a massive, powerful space fortress to build a functioning spacefaring empire from a grim and resource-poor world, the second Imperial ships translated into the system and he met the Emperor of Mankind, Dorn bent his knee and pledged loyalty. So yeah, out of all of his brothers, Rogel Dorn was probably the one with the least personality. He never went against the order until after the heresy, but again, that's a story for later. He never showed ambition, barely even cracked a smile or made a joke, and the only demands he ever made were in the defense of Imperial law. He is even famously one of the only Primarchs with absolutely zero psychic ability, and perhaps that is where he was meant to be. Solid, steadfast, incorruptible, unquestioning. All these things he had and then some. The man couldn't even lie. He was also a very talented military mind. Most of his brothers considered him to be one of the very best that the Primarchs had to offer. He made well-ordered plans like Guilliman. He was as bold and fearless as the lion, and still made good use of moments of zeal in ways similar to Jagatai. It was well known amongst the Primarchs that if a fortress was held by Dorn and his legion, then it could not be taken. Dorn seems to be the first Primarch built to maintain the new Imperium, rather than just taking more territory. But despite being a fairly boring man by most accounts, Dorn got along well with most of his brothers. Most. His inability to lie and his rigid adherence to Imperial law often got him on the bad side of just about every one of his more morally dubious brothers, none more so than Perturabo. Although a stiff breeze could bruise Perturabo's ego, he had a very special hatred for Dorn, as the two often competed for the title of Best Siege Master. Well, Perturabo competed, Dorn just did his job and kept...
I need to fight!
Eventually, when the Emperor declared Horus War Master and left for Terra and his secret project, Dorn was the only Primarch to go with him. His father wanted him to bolster the Imperial palace.
Why is there gold floating up there? What does that mean?
Into one of the most impenetrable
Does it still float over here?
galaxy. And this is why the registered homeworld for
I
the
guess this
Imperial
is the tower.
is Holy Terra itself, with Rogel Dorn being named the Praetorian of Terra. The 7th Legion still claims Terra as its homeworld today, even though from the beginning the Legion was a fleet-based one operating primarily out of the ancient battle station.
Voss.
More than any of his brothers, Roboute
right into that
the easiest life. The pod carrying the Primarch of the 13th Legion lands on the temperate world of Macragge.
Yeah.
A relatively well-developed society, loosely resembling the Romans of
Hang
it.
on. How did you hear about that? Have you been spying on me?
Oh.
Uncovering secrets is part of my trade. I have eyes and ears in every corner of the Empire.
Oh.
He is then found not by slaves, criminals,
That
or
would sound a lot
barbarian
more
tribe members,
impressive
but by
if it
the
weren't for the
ruling
huge
elites of the
chaos
planet.
cult. You have
Guilliman
no idea
hit the
who's
jackpot.
operating
The
in
miraculous child from the stars is given the name Roboute Guilliman and adopted by one of the ruling consuls of Macragge.
Chaos cult?
Luxury, given the best
I haven't
education
time
and
to
the
waste
best
on idle
opportunities for
chatter,
growth.
dwarf.
Like
What
his
do
brothers,
you want?
Roboute grew quickly and by age 10 had command of his adopted father's armies, far outgrowing his tutors in every subject from philosophy to science to warcraft. But it's what he did with those armies that would give the best
There's a
bliss
shrine to
what kind of a
Nurgle
leader
hidden
Guilliman
in the
had grown
sewers.
to be.
For some
Two
damn
incidents
reason,
before his
Nicholas
rediscovery
the
show
Jew
his
might be
character
able to
very
help us
clearly.
find it.
The first is early on in his career. Not long after he was given command of his father's armies, the mountain regions to the north were home to a nomadic population of barbarians that had fled the more settled regions of Macragge for years. Young Roboute was tasked with finally destroying them, and at first he seemed to do that, taking their holy sites to force the smaller guerrilla forces of the barbarians to come to him, rather than searching for ghosts in the mountains. Once he had drawn them out, though, Guilliman called out for a duel with their leader, rather than put both armies through more bloodshed. But the Primarch had a plan, and as the two warriors fought each other, it became very clear that the barbarian leader couldn't hope to match this preteen demigod. But Roboute never made a strike. He just parried over and over until the barbarian was exhausted and at his mercy. Then, instead of killing him, Roboute brought out an old religious artifact that his father's army had captured some time before, and offered it freely. The Primarch won through diplomacy, bringing the mountain clans into
Find the
by
cultist
example
leader.
and kindness. But he was a Primarch Primarch still, and was not opposed to being merciless when the moment called for it. Upon return from the mountain campaigns, Guilliman discovered that his father's co-consuls had assassinated him and started a coup. They didn't like the changes that Rabute and his adopted father were making to the Macroggan society, attempting to make it a meritocracy where birthright didn't mean as much as skill and passion. Needless to say, Rabute was not kind to these rebels. Oddly enough, it's at this moment that the Great Crusade had reached a nearby system and the Emperor began hearing about this prodigy on Macrogg. He knew immediately that this must be another missing Primarch, but a sudden warp storm kept him away from the system for 5 long years, and by the time it cleared and the Imperial forces contacted Guilliman, he had not only tamed Macrogg as its leader, but every nearby system he could reach. And that's really what Rabute was made to be, a superb general capable of running a complex campaign from individual squad tactics to supply lines and fallback options. But more than that, like his brother Rogel Dorn, Guilliman seemed to be made more for what comes after fighting, rather than just the fighting itself. Rabute was put in charge of his 13th Legion, the Ultramarines, and it was at the forefront of most campaigns in the remainder of the Crusade. In fact, aside from the Lunar Wolves and their Primarch Horus, no other Legion conquered more territory. Guilliman took whole sectors that built up their infrastructure, ensuring these places could defend themselves and stood the best chance possible to become valuable parts of the Imperium. Guilliman was also one of the most liked of his brothers, not because he was particularly fun like Leman Russ, or because he was beautiful and charming like Sanguinius, but because he was generally calm, honest, and didn't play around when it came to getting the job done. And he was trusted by the Emperor and Horus, which was good because Guilliman's Ultramarines grew to be the largest legion by a wide margin by the end of the Great Crusade, swelling in numbers suspiciously around the same time the 2nd and 11th Legions mysteriously disappeared. One of the most psychically gifted of all the Emperor's sons, Magnus the Red's story is one that is made in equal parts of hubris and unearned consequence, but his early life almost rivaled the grandeur of Guilliman's. The pawn holding the child that would become Magnus landed on Prospero, a far-flung colony of outcast psychers, mutants who were not welcome anywhere else. The pod came screaming in like a comet and smashed into the central plaza of Prospero's largest city. The boy emerged fully conscious and was adopted by the local scholars. And that bit about Magnus being conscious even as he emerged from his pod is important. He was such a powerful psyker that he remembered his whole existence, even his own birth. In fact, it wasn't long before Magnus was having conversations with the Emperor himself via the warp, long before they would ever meet. In this way, Magnus was probably the most prepared out of all his brothers to rejoin the Imperium when the Crusade arrived. In the meantime, though, Magnus set to work on Prospero, cleansing it of a
tired. I have no idea where to go.
And restoring the city of Tisca, which would become the new capital. Prospero was allowed to flourish in a way that no other colony of mutants could ever hope to in the Imperium or otherwise, and by the time the Emperor finally made it there, the planet stood ready to join the Imperium. Magnus and the Emperor formed a deep bond for the time they were together. Big E didn't exactly have many peers who could even come close to matching his psychic might, so having his newly found son with him on dives into the warp was a great experience. Think of it as the psychic equivalent of tossing a ball around in the backyard. But the Emperor had a big problem because he was really trying to push back the forces of the Gods of Chaos, and to do that, he decided the best idea was to give them as little oxygen as possible, which meant ignoring their existence to starve them of the attention they needed to gain power. And this meant that while Magnus was the most warp-gifted of his sons, he had to be very stern with him on many occasions. Magnus was not to investigate or dabble with creatures from the warp for any reason. And then he gave Magnus his legion, the 15th, the Thousand Sons, who were currently suffering from a large-scale mutation called the Flesh Change. Being made from Magnus's genetic material meant that his legion was also home to some of the most psychically active Marines in the Imperium.
Holy fuck, I'm tired.
Even as they tried desperately to ignore them. Magnus and the Emperor worked tirelessly to find a solution, and in the end, Magnus sacrificed his eye in a bargain with the warp creatures to save his sons, and for a time, this stopped the mutations. Here's where things get frustratingly bad for Magnus. So every Primarch is made for a purpose, and it seems as though Magnus was made to be a fountain of psychic energy. He was more powerful than almost any other psyker in the galaxy at his height, and his curiosity to learn more so he could grow and gain control was a very predictable outcome of designing a being with this sort of power.
Hey Raider, you looking to blow stuff up?
Yeah.
Knowing all of this, the Emperor told him to just not poke at the warp and left it at that. He never really told him why. He never went into specifics. It's like telling a child not to touch an oven, but not that it will burn you if you do. And so, of course, Magnus kept researching and poking at the warp. The Imperium, though, was very superstitious about psychers and mutants in general, so even amongst his brothers, Magnus was viewed with suspicion, and in some cases, outright scorn. It didn't help that the further and further the crusade got from Terra, the more strange creatures came across, including many warp creatures that no one could identify. Demons weren't a known thing. Remember, the Emperor had strictly clamped down on that knowledge, so it was blamed on Magnus and his legion, with even the other Primarchs distrusting him due to his use of warp sorcery. But Magnus was determined to prove the usefulness of psychers in warfare when it was properly tempered, and he developed the Librarians, a special group of space brains who were sensitive to the warp and who could be trained to use their powers for the benefit of the Imperium. Librarians proved so effective that the practice soon spread to almost every legion, much to the anger of Primarchs like Mortarion and Leman Russ. The debate over the use of psychic powers grew so heated that eventually the Emperor was forced to call a special council to decide what to do, and on Nicaea, Magnus and his doctrine were put on trial. It was a difficult and lengthy process, with Primarchs and Marines from many legions weighing in on the pros and cons, but eventually the decision was made that the only psychers allowed in the legions would be the astropaths and navigators that are necessary for warp travel, and the librarians would go back to being normal legionnaires, strictly hiding their psychic abilities. Magnus was unhappy with the decision, but he held it for a long time, even dissuading his brother Lorgar from secretly researching the secrets of the warp after the council had ruled. Of course, things were progressing now in a way that would leave Magnus very little choice but to use his might to help the Imperium, but that's a story for later. Ted found was Hippolytus, the literal golden child of the Imperium. The Primarch of the 9th Legion was perfect and is as close to a Gary Sue as possible in this lore. He was kind and compassionate while being strong and merciless against those who would do harm to humanity. He had powerful psychic gifts, including a strong ability to see the future like his brother Conrad Kurz, except he wouldn't be driven mad by it. He was a masterful combatant, a courageous and wise leader, a brilliant tactician, and beloved, or at least respected, by every one of his brothers. And yes, that is over the top, almost cartoonish so, but we should remember that the story of Warhammer 40k quite often drifts into the operatic, and Sanguinius is hardly the only character with outrageously blunt portrayals. We would argue that the inclusion of a perfect son was necessary in this larger-than-life story. The pod-carrying Sanguinius crashed into the planet of Baal, a world that had suffered nuclear and chemical warfare throughout the Dark Age of technology, and as a result the surface was a blasted and irradiated hellscape dominated by hordes of mutant tribes and a group of unstated humans who struggled to fight for what little resources still existed. These are the people who found the baby Primarch.
How do I find the coldest leader?
Like his brother, Sanguinius
I'm stuck.
was taller and stronger than any of his tribe mates by his first year. Oh, and he also had grown wings. No one is sure if it was a quirk of the radiation on Baal or if the Emperor had designed him this way, but Sanguinius had grown an obvious, if beautiful, mutation, a pair of pure white wings that were strong enough to allow him to fly. That, plus his incredible psychic abilities, allowed Sanguinius to lead his tribe called the Blood to victory after victory against the mutants of Baal. And so he was able to secure a future for his found family, even if it was still harsh on the planet's surface. This is when the Emperor appeared, disguised himself as he has done several times, trying to gauge the character of his lost son. But Sanguinius had the gift of foresight because of course he did, and he had seen this stranger in his dreams, knowing who he really was. Sanguinius didn't challenge the Emperor, nor did he immediately bend the knee either. The first time, so he set a condition of his service upon them being allowed to live, which the Emperor agreed to. Sanguinius then asked something that no other Primarch had. What would happen if he refused to join? To this, the Emperor gave probably the best answer possible. He said that wouldn't happen because Sanguinius was clearly a man who cared about protecting humanity. He had saved the people of the Blood, and now that he was being given a chance to save humans across the galaxy, there was no way he could pass that up. He was correct, and Sanguinius swore loyalty without further conversation.
I don't know, I'm stuck.
All was set up as
Oh
his
wait,
legions
this side let me in.
After a few years learning about Imperial life and warfare from both the Emperor and Horus, he was given control of his legion, the Revenant Legion, as it was called at the time.
Oh no, I can't do any of these.
Into a pack of wild
Fucking
killers at this
dude.
point, scattered across dozens of campaigns, fighting wherever they could. They had all of Sanguinius' rage, but none of his control, and so upon meeting them for the first time, he instead made an oath to them. These men would no longer be honorless berserkers, they would have his leadership and his strength, and in return, he would share their fate. Redemption or damnation, the great angel would be with them, fighting to make them the greatest legion of them all. His passion and intensity drew his men to him eagerly, and with the help of his psychic abilities, the raging flaw in their blood was calmed. From then on, the Legion was known as the Blood Angels. At this point, you all must be thinking that it's hypocritical for the Imperium at large, just especially the other Primarchs, to have seen this obvious mutant with potent psychic powers and just universally chose to adore him, whereas Magnus and Conrad are just seething in the background. But as far as the lore shows, none of Sanguinius' brothers resented him until...
FanDuel Sportsbook and Casino. Try it now.
The heresy. Favoritism aside, Sanguinius never fell victim to his ego or believed himself superior to any of his brothers or even his own sons, and true to his word, the Blood Angels quickly became one of the most honorable and effective legions in the Imperial war machine. His friendship with his brothers grew deeper the whole while, especially Horus, who believed that Sanguinius should have been made War Master instead of him. Sanguinius was the best of them and more like the Emperor than any of the Primarchs he had said. What happened between those two later on is perhaps one of the most painful tragedies in this story. Possibly the greatest fighter of all the Primarchs, Lionel Johnson was found next on the heavily forested planet of Caliban. A pod bearing the mark of the First Legion crashed onto the cursed planet way too close to the Eye of Terror. This proximity to the largest open warp portal in the galaxy made Caliban a dangerous place, full of warp-tainted monsters. Even the forest itself
I need to fight!
Here, the history books lose track of Johnson as he had landed.
No, I need more time.
Somehow, the boy spent a decade in that monster.
No, I need more time.
Impossible for even a Primarch to do. Of course, like every one of his brothers,
just another second and I'll crush them all.
Monster came across the wild giant man and almost slew him out of fear. Their leader, a man named Luther, calmed the whole situation and convinced the boy to come back with them. From there, it's a very predictable story. Now given the name, Lionel Johnson grew quickly, outstripping all his tutors and instructors, rising through the ranks.
Let's give him a little respite!
The people of Caliban
I've lost the blood rush!
Over by various knightly orders, very similar to the medieval Europe on Terra. Not long afterwards, Luther and Johnson had gained enough fame that they began to form a coalition of the knightly orders. They believed that altogether Caliban could be cleansed of the monsters that had terrorized its people for generations. Luther was a skilled orator, something that Johnson never really gained a taste for.
Another second, and I'll crush them all! Let's give them a little respite!
Waiting down here.
Just another second, and I'll crush them all! I've lost the blood rush! Just another second, and I'll crush them all! I need to fight!
It seems like Johnson didn't fight or challenge the Emperor when they met, which is a bit odd considering how audacious and proud he was at the time. But it could also be that Johnson simply
I must return to the fight! Just another second, and I'll crush them all!
Either way, he was immediately placed in command of the First Legion, which was swiftly renamed the Dark Angels. The First Legion had been the Emperor's favorite tool for quite a long time, even after Horus was found, and so their leadership was actually very slow to accept their gene father. The man, however, was in no mood to accept any...
No! I need more time!
It's just like every level, every floor of this fucking castle.
No! I need more time!
That's the Nurgle demons.
No! I need more
Decay
time!
and rot. Trophy! Damon
Let's give them a little
Slayer.
respite! I need to fight!
Unfortunately, this would not be the last time
I need to fight!
against his own people, as resentment continued to grow while he made a name for himself and his legion on the crusade.
I've lost the
In terms
blood
of his
rush!
relationship with his brothers, most found Johnson irritating and full of himself, which he was. Mind you, he was also probably the best fighter of them all, and at one point openly fought his brother.
Holy shit, here we go again.
Let's give them a little respite!
Lion was a loyal son, but he had ambition, and was...
I need to fight!
That, coupled with his difficulty understanding the emotions of his brothers, led him to be liked only by a few.
I've lost the blood rush! I need more time!
But for now, this is where we meet the first Primarch. They fought, retaining the...
I need to fight!
Streaks across the night sky.
Let's give them a little respite! I need to fight! Let's give them a little respite! I need to fight! Just another second and I'll crush them all!
Engaging in some curiosity, the boy is found by guards.
Just another second and I'll crush them all!
His men immediately understood that the boy was
Just another second and I'll crush them all! I've lost the blood rush! Let's give them a little respite! I've lost the blood rush!
something that the Primarch would never...
Let's give them a little
Chose
respite!
for himself the name of Bravo, and refused to grow close to anyone.
Let's give them a little respite!
Bravo was interested only in excellence, efficiency, and
No! I need more time!
raising subjugation of the other fortified cities of Olympia, but only because he wanted experience with siegecraft, something that he would indeed become known for. This was the man that the Emperor found when his crusade reached Olympia.
No! I need more time!
Very easily, turned out his new legion of super soldiers made with his genetic material. He named them the Iron Warriors, and he was just
I
as
need
ruthless
to
with
fight.
them as he was with his enemies. After looking over their war
Just another second and I'll crush them all!
areas and
I've lost the blood rush!
one in every 10 legionnaires were chosen by lottery and beaten to death by his squad mates.
I've lost the blood rush! No! I need more time!
Marines failed to hold up to his exacting standards.
No! I need more time!
Became known for many of the negative traits rather than
I've
his
lost the
talents. In
blood
fact,
rush.
We are of the opinion that no Primarch squandered their
Let's give them a little respite! I need to fight!
Legion was even more of a genius than most of his brothers, able to understand the
need
workings
to
of
fight.
any machine by simply studying it for a while. He was able to
Just
take
another
so
second
at such
and I'll crush them all!
computer crafted into his skull to handle
No! I need more time!
situations involved in managing a battle. And so
You have the choice to get your vehicle serviced at our place.
I need to fight!
Your Ford dealer or choose complimentary Ford pickup and delivery or mobile service and we'll come
No! I need more time! I need to fight!
I hear you fucking baboon.
Feel more comfortable sharing it with my close friends than things.
Just another second and I'll crush them
Oh
all!
fuck, how many floors do I gotta get through to get
Just
this?
another second! I've lost the blood rush!
they know it.
Just
There's
another
this many
second
levels to
and
the
I'll crush them
sewer.
all! I need to fight! Let's give them a little respite!
All of that couldn't help him overcome
Let's give them a little respite!
himself. Perturabo was self-important, petty, and jealous. His great mind was often turned to how unfairly he believed he was being treated. His brother Rogel Dorn, for instance, was given some of the most glorious campaigns and was trusted to build the fortifications on Holy Terra itself, while Perturabo's legion was given the most thankless and grueling sieges
I fell asleep.
taking tremendous
Alright guys,
losses
I'm ending the stream.
over again.
Until next time, Glacier out. Yeah. Sledheads, my debut 60-page hardcover comic book with art by Christian Rossi. Yeah. Is being published by Critical Blast. Stay alert and hang tight. 2026 is gonna be great. Yeah.
also made him a very easy target
paypal.me/glacier8888, paypal.me/glacier8888. Consider leaving a a donation if you've been entertained. If you're inclined and of the mind and feeling kind, then go ahead and send all donos. Get Glacier Mountain Comics as a comic book company off the ground and running off to the races. Thank you. Hell, brother, hell. And until next time, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, eat your vegetables, say love you to your mother. Until next time, Glacier out. Ciao.
Doesn't have much effect on the alien warlords who ruled this planet, but for humans, even a Primarch